So this week's podcast is with Sarah Holmes. Now, Sarah had a sort of a missed opportunity because she was hoping to join the Manchester in-person course in April 2025 and wasn't able to do so due to illness. And literally, she had 2 months before she was due to take a flight. And this is what she did. So I hope you'll enjoy this, but it just goes to show what's possible to achieve in a very short space of time from somebody who has been avoiding flying and had some not very nice experiences. So hope you enjoy it. So this week's podcast, we welcome Sarah Holmes. Welcome, Sarah. Thank you for joining. Sarah's based in the Wirral, up near Liverpool and all that. It's quite posh, isn't it, the Wirral, isn't it?
It's got posh parts. I'm not particularly in a posh bit, but
okay, I didn't know whether I needed to bow or anything. I was just checking, So tell us a little bit about yourself. Obviously I've just given away where you live now. Sorry about that. And what you do, like who you are, anything like that.
Yeah, great. I've lived on the Wirral. I grew up here, but I moved away around to various different parts. Mainly northwest, and then I've come back. It is a lovely place, and I'm a university lecturer here. So I teach early childhood at Liverpool Hope University, and so it's a good place. I've got 4 kids, and so they keep me very busy.
I bet they do, yeah.
Yeah, but so that's me.
Okay, so when it comes to flying, how do you describe yourself?
Ooh, now or at what stage?
Well, what would you say? Like right now, how would you describe yourself? Your relationship to flying right now?
I think I am hesitant, but I'm trying to be a bit more realistic and a bit more sort of facing those anxieties.
Okay.
In a realistic way. That's kind of where I'm at. Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted a little calibrate where you were. I always find it interesting to sort of hear how people describe their relationship to fear, and I sometimes just want to ask, and so I was nosy. Let's get into it then. So, talk us through your journey. Like I don't know where you want to start, but like what your relationship to fear of flying is, and then maybe how you joined us. That sort of. So just give us a bit, and I'll probably just jump in with a few questions along the way.
Yeah. Well, I didn't used to be afraid of flying, and I've heard a lot of people say this on the various conversations. So I remember when I think it was 15, 16, my parents put me on a plane to Germany because I was learning German at the time on my own, and off I went and had a great time, and that was fine. I've flown quite a few times since then. Went to the Maldives. That's quite a long flight. So it always, just not a problem. But then I think a few things happened simultaneously. So I had kids, which used up a lot of money, so we couldn't afford to fly for quite a while, and logistically was harder. So didn't fly. But then there was also COVID and just that kind of life stage that I was in. Didn't fly, but then also heard things, bombs and crashes and all that kind of thing, which started to probably feed a bit of fear there. So because of that, then I developed this fear of flying, and I think I hadn't really realized that until I flew to Northern Ireland because I had relatives there, but I wasn't feeling well that day anyway. And
what back are we talking? So give us a sort of a date.
So that was just before the pandemic, I think. Okay. So probably like 2019 or something.
Right. Well, up until then, you weren't at all scared of flying in any way before.
But I probably hadn't flown for about 10 years in that leading up to that. So I hadn't really flown. Then I had this flight, Northern Ireland, not feeling well anyway. It was a little bit turbulent, but nothing too bad, probably. To me, it felt awful.
Yeah, cool.
And it was a really late flight. I think we left at 11 p.m. or something. And so I was really tired. All of those things combined. And I just suddenly, I realized I'm terrified of this. And so from then, I just didn't really fly again after that.
So you'd had, okay, so, with the 10-year gap, I mean, it would be quite overwhelming suddenly being in an aircraft anyway. Then you've got, and I like the fact that you've identified all these other factors that can exacerbate it, can't they? Make you feel, being tired. And I could totally relate to that. And then you had some turbulence.
Yeah.
And that was it. So what story did you tell yourself that made you think, oh my God, this is it?
I don't think I consciously did tell myself a story at that time. I think I just thought, oh, that was awful. Then carried on with my life. But I think from that point, I then just didn't. I avoided flying. I just didn't. Sort of, we would tend to go on caravan holidays through the on the ferry, so that didn't need to fly. But work, there were a few opportunities kept coming up with work, and I just didn't go because and then I started to realize actually I am very anxious about flying because each time it would come up, the sort of annual conference in the States, and I really wanted to go with work, but I just thought, oh no, I just can't go. Don't want to fly. And as the years went by, I just thought, oh, it's getting worse. I'm feeling more anxious about this. And then we did go to Spain as a family about 18 months ago, something like that. And we flew, and I was terrified. And I think that was when I really thought, this isn't good. This is not a healthy thing, because I was trying to not show it for my kids, which again, I know a lot of people say that, and actually that helped me to try to pretend, but I just basically didn't speak the whole time. I said to my husband, you just have to do everything. I'll just sit there.
So when you were just sitting there, what were you doing? You
put music. I always put my music on. That helps.
So you were kind of sort of trying to remove yourself from thinking about flying.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, but funnily, I saw somebody had put in the Lovefly group recently a picture, and it totally describes what I would have done on that Spanish flight. And it said, I can't relax because I'm keeping the plane up with my mind, or something like that. And that's kind of where I was, just like on high alert, just got to keep an eye, got to watch just in case something goes wrong. Yeah.
Well, it's always helpful to have standby pilots.
Yes.
Pardon, that was you concentrating. Helpful. Yep.
Yeah.
It's funny what we tell ourselves, isn't it? Because you're obviously an intelligent human, and yet you were concentrating on keeping fun. Yeah. So, why did you get a fear of flying?
I think probably from the news, things that I'd seen happening, but not even the news, because obviously, there are facts of plane crashes, but then other things that are in the news aren't facts. So like, all the security around it, and the kind of the bomb threats and all that, and actually that means that it's safe, doesn't it? But those were the things that really frightened me. And I would click on things and watch them, various, stories about those kinds of things. Because it's funny, isn't it? It intrigues you. So you watch it, but it's really not helpful. And I don't think I realized that it wasn't helpful for me until, involved in Lovefly and everything. And then I thought, actually, why have I watched it?
Yeah, it's amazing what we do, isn't it? Yeah. It's like when you try. For me, I sometimes notice if I'm trying to sort of like stay under a certain weight, I'm more then drawn to like rubbish foods. So it's almost like if someone says to yourself, I mustn't do that, and then your brain goes, aha! But look over there, it's a fridge full of yummy stuff. Look at those chips over there. It's just like, let's do that. Not helpful.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got a sense then you're not liking the flying, you've avoided it for a long time, then you've flown, not had a great experience, then you've done another one, you've kind of zoned it out, you're concentrating, and then so what made you want to do something about it?
Well, again, this annual trip came up, possibility in the States, and And by this point, I'd been working with loads of people online through work. So there were going to be like over 20 people at this conference that I knew really, really well, but I'd never met them. We got on so well. And I just thought, this is just stupid. And it was also a particularly unique year that work were able to particularly pay for it all and all that kind of thing. Everything really aligned. And I just thought, I have to try and go. Like, I really just need to. It's too good to miss as an opportunity. Even when I booked the flight, I remember the day of booking the flight.
So when are we talking now? So give us a sort of a timeline, because people like to know how long it took and where you were.
Well, yeah, so I booked the flight in January. Well, even before that, I applied for the conference because if I presented a paper, I would get in for free and, and work would pay and all that kind of thing. So I submitted a paper proposal and thought, well, hopefully it won't get accepted and then I won't have to face the flying. But it did.
Just pause for a minute. I've submitted this, but hopefully they won't accept it and I'll have to bloody well go. Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, and then they did. And I'm like, oh, gotta go. So yeah. But even when I booked the flight.
Okay, so Sarah, so is that this January? Just
this January? Yeah,
right,
yeah. When I booked it, I remember thinking, but actually, you never know, I might be sick that day and I won't be able to go. And I might, and that was in my mind. Yeah.
Brilliant.
That wasn't great.
Funny what we do, isn't it? Why would okay. So you booked, so you're talking January and the trip was planned for
June.
Okay. Right. So you had between January and June to try and be ill. So you had time to work on that. So what did you do then? So what, I mean, obviously we don't want to cut to the punchline, but you went on the flight?
Yeah, well,
we hear that. So let's rewind. What did you do from January onwards, knowing that you had this flight in June?
Well, I started saying to people, I'm going to this conference, but I'm really terrified of flying. So I started sort of telling people. And then somebody I know said she wasn't keen on flying. She said, but she's flown a lot. Anyway, she's not keen on it, but she's flown it. She said, you can do these courses and, things to help. So I Googled it. And because I was flying with Virgin Atlantic, Lovefly came up. So I booked on a course in Manchester. But then I know what I just said about being ill, but I genuinely had a awful ear infection, which I've never had ever before in my life. And I was awfully ill for a week, couldn't lift my head. It was horrendous, and the noise and everything. I couldn't stand them. My poor children was like, just be quiet. It's terrible. And so I couldn't go on the course, which was disappointing, but absolutely devastating, because I thought that means I can't go now. That was like my one hope of getting over this and getting sorted. And then when I couldn't go, I was absolutely devastated, because I thought, now I'll have to cancel. I just can't go. But then because I knew about Lovefly, I started watching the podcasts and seeing and various things, and that it's honestly just helped me so much to prepare and to change the way I was thinking. And
okay, so let's just unpick that a little bit. So for some people, yes, I remember the April incident, where you were unwell, and that could have been enough for people to go, that's a sign, I'm not meant to go. I've tried to do this thing and now I'm unwell, can't even do a course, blah, blah, blah. Why didn't that happen to you?
I think, well, two things. One, because I started watching the podcast, I thought, well, I may as well just have a quick look and see what I'm missing, kind of thing. But the other thing,
this crap's all about.
Yeah. Just the and then, but the other thing was, I just kind of thought all the way through, life is about risks, and if you sit on the sofa, that comes all your life, that comes with risks, doesn't it? Everything you do, you go out, and that's life. And do I want to just sort of hide away and just live this perceived by me super safe life, or do I want to actually experience a few things? And so that was kind of very much in my mind, thinking, no, I've got to try and do a little bit of take a few risks in life and enjoy a little bit. So
what do you like? What's your risk appetite generally then? Sounds like financial advisor now.
Very low, very low. So I don't do roller coasters, don't do anything. I don't particularly like heights, all that kind of thing. I'm not.
You'll get in cars. You'll be a passenger in a car.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Get on a bus.
Yeah.
Go on a tube, on a train.
Yeah.
Okay. So all the other ferry.
Yeah. No problem.
Would you go in the channel?
Yeah. Yes, I did. The first time I went in the tunnel, I suddenly realized I was a bit claustrophobic. But it was okay, But no, yeah.
Okay. So I was just talking about checking, around, So actually, although you don't like to take risks, you are doing other things. You were taking, because some people won't do those things either. Public transport or anything. Anita, you may have heard her podcast a few months ago. She wouldn't get in a drive-through, like a McDonald's drive-through queue, because then she's stuck in a queue and can't get out. So people, the level of fear is very different. So you weren't doing that sort of stuff. So that's it, but you had enough. It was enough to stop you. Okay, so when you started accessing the podcast, you said you watched. So did you attack in a certain order? What was your process for selecting? I suppose that's a better question.
I think the process for selecting, because I also joined a Facebook group, so people would tend to recommend things. So I'd probably start off by watching some of them. Started making myself a list of the numbers, sort of look at them, and then sort of realize, wow, there's so many. And I probably watched maybe 20, 25. I'm not as hardcore a member as some of the others who've watched
No, I know.
No, really.
Scary.
Yeah. But
in any in particular that you would go, that was helpful for me, personally?
I can't remember the numbers or the titles, really. Sorry. But I think just to be honest, I didn't watch any that were unhelpful. They all, were just, and I think a lot of it, what I realized, and I know that you talk about this a bit, a lot of it was just starting to allow myself to think about flying and to just sort of have it a bit more in my mind and in my sort of world, I suppose, because flying wasn't really in my world. And so to actually have those conversations and listen to them, and it's almost normalizing it, isn't it? So it's like, that was really, really helpful. And people would talk about tips and various things about, and that was always really helpful. Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you for the sort of things that helped you, because and what you did. So we're talking like we've got this January to June sort of idea. So before you booked the course that you didn't go to in April, did you do anything else towards help? No. All right. So okay, then this is really interesting. So really, you couldn't make the April course, and so you got April, May. So you literally had a couple of months where you thought, "Oh crap, I better."
Which was why I was so upset that I couldn't come on the course, because there's no time to do anything else. Yeah.
Well, when you first said, "Oh, I can't attend it," obviously having run courses for years and years and years, God knows how many years now, that's not unusual in itself, because sometimes people will get an illness, they'll get all sorts of stuff come up, and you think, so sometimes it can be psychosomatic and other times it's real. So you're always kind of like, oh, is this like, what's going on for this person? Obviously hadn't met you then, And so I was quite curious about that. I think the impressive part is that you've had that full start, and yet you've turned it into doing something. Because I was genuinely worried. I thought, oh, crap, she's got a flight in June. I knew that, and I was thinking, what's she going to do about it? And then you disappeared off the radar. So I didn't know what you'd done. So from then onwards, you just were watching podcasts. Did you, like, where did you watch them? Are you like a studious type, like sit and write notes, or do you like drive and listen? What's your sort of process?
Well, because I was ill, literally couldn't do anything. I watched quite a few those few days when I was just lying in bed, could not move off the pillow, but I could watch and listen. So I had to like a binge watch in that time. But then after that, probably listening in the car while I was driving, or sometimes in the evenings. And I was trying to well, I had my list I was trying to get down that people had recommended, so I was trying to achieve all of those.
Yeah.
But also, I was aware that it was helpful if I sort of at least once a week or so was, listening to something, just to keep it there in my radar, really. So,
And so what were you saying to yourself about that flight in June in terms of, I'm going and I'm definitely going, I might go? What was your kind of process? What were you,
well, I think pretty soon after I'd like my little binge watch, I thought I did have a mindset shift of, yeah, I'm going, I can do this. And it was because I remember watching one that is it Captain Steve, is it, and he talks about like how the plane, all the physics of it, and is it and all that. And whilst I hate physics, actually knowing that it's not just, I think I probably originally thought it was just a bit random and it was a fluke that the plane happened to work and fly and all that. But hearing all of that helped me to actually understand there is science to this, and there's it actually works, and all of those kind of things. And one thing, I mean, everybody I spoke to in the field of after that could tell you now that about the plane being if both engines fail, which they won't, and all this, and it can glide and all that kind of thing. So, but I know, yeah. Anyway, and so various things, and the turbulence, water, and all those kind of things were really helpful. And the whole thing of it being the safest mode of transport, and that's why I kept sort of quoting to myself. And I think for me it was quite a journey, those couple of months of really intentionally controlling my mind, really, and sort of where I started thinking, oh, but what if actually no, because
oh, hang on a sec, we need a little bit of this. There's some gold there. So intentionally controlling your mind. So talk us through that. What you did, some sort of cognitive interruption technique there. Let's have it.
yeah, but I didn't know it was called that.
Yeah, well, we just named it that now, all right?
Very good name. Yeah, I think it was. I'm just very aware that my mind runs off with itself, thinking all sorts of things and all of the what ifs and so on. And so again, this was, think people were either saying this on the Facebook group or on the podcast. This idea of, just controlling and sort of thinking. My mind started thinking, oh, what if, the pilot is ill or something, or gets locked out of the cockpit.
Yeah.
And then you think, right, but hang on, I know all of the safety measures that are in place, and there's all these things that underpin and all those kind of things. And so where I started thinking about my worries or whatever, I would think, hang on, no, I know this fact, or I know this, this truth, if you like, of these kind of things. So that was a really important part, I think, for me, of preparing. But also this thing I said before of, but even though there are risks to it, because there is risks with anything, do I want to not take that risk? Actually, I do want to take the risk. I do want to go to the States, do want to see my friends. So, so it's the two things together, really.
Yeah. That's good. Because when people are listening, they're thinking, yeah, but how do you do it? How do you actually do it? So I think it's important to have the balance of something you want to do desperately, but and also then what's going on right now and what am I telling myself? And I think that's really helpful. Okay, so what were you like leading up to the flight as it got nearer in terms of your anxiety levels?
I watched more and more podcasts because I was, more and more.
So you were a watcher. You like the YouTube version rather than the.
Well, yeah, I was accessing on YouTube, but often I wasn't watching. I would, just be listening in the car or something.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah. So to be honest, any of the podcasts, it didn't really matter because they all had something in them that were helpful. There was some about preparing and that kind of thing, which were helpful as well, and things like the flight checklist. I had that ready, and I think for me as well, as I was preparing in that final couple of weeks, I thought, what can I control? Because part of it for me as well is that control that I'm not flying the plane. Actually, the plane would not work well if I tried to fly. I've no idea.
No disrespect.
Yeah, no idea. So, so some of the things that I like I like to write a list and things like that. So what I did was, I think it was a 10-hour flight. So I planned what I was going to do in each hour. I took loads of work, which for me is my happy place. Yeah. So I thought that'll keep my mind off it. And so I'd planned, every hour what I was going to do, and had a bag in the overhead locker, and then I'd taken a small bag out underneath. So I wouldn't have to get out of my seat too many times. And, I just really planned. I took, some sweets I liked, took some food for later on, kept that above, just planned what would make me feel as comfortable as I could in that space. Even paid a little bit extra for, I think I got is it 5 inches extra seat or something? I don't know, in the economy delight, because I thought
worth it.
Yeah. Anything that can make me feel a bit comfortable. I thought, actually, I need to just try and do that. I can control. So that was helpful. Yeah.
Economy delight. They come up with these things,
Yeah. No,
that's funny. Oh, so that's good. So tell us about the flight then. How was that?
Well, I flew from Manchester to Atlanta, and it was really good, actually. In the airport, I was all right until I think I got to the gate. Then I'd sort of slightly lost the plot, and because I was flying on my own, and I could feel myself just getting really panicky, and just really, I wasn't upset at that stage, but really quite panicky. And I went over to the lady at the gate, and I said, "Oh, very anxious flyer." And I think I had printed out the letter, but I didn't sort of show it or anything. And she could see me sitting there waiting, and they called the various groups to go. And I think I was probably supposed to be near the end, but halfway through, she said, "Do you want to just get on now?"
Okay.
So I quickly went on. And then I got really upset, and it's just really just I started to just slightly lose control of myself a bit, really. And I thought, but again, this is where, so I said to them, I showed them the letter, and I said, "Oh, really don't like this when I got on." And I got myself settled, and I started crying, and I just fell apart. And I said, "Look, can I just go and stand at the back?" Because I couldn't, somehow everybody walking past me I couldn't cope with it. Yeah. So they said, "Yeah, sure." So they let me just go and stand at the back in the kitchen area for I don't know how long. And I just stood there crying for however long, 15 minutes. I said to them, "I'm fine. I just need to stand."
Yeah.
And they were very kind. They got me a drink of water, and they just said, "Yeah, you do your thing." And then I went and sort of sat down, ready to go. And I was really upset taking off. I don't actually mind takeoff. I'm not frightened of that, but just the whole thing, up there and crying. And then I thought, you know what? I'm on here now. There's no point crying. Just go with it, I'm here now. So then actually from that point, I followed my plan. I went down my list, and every hour I did my thing.
But the crying bit sounds like it might have been quite cathartic, like it was like a I'm just going to do this. And then you kind of talked yourself out of it going, well, this isn't helpful. You know, I'm here now, so that's it. It's interesting how your logic jumps in, does it? And sort of tells your other part of your brain, shut up. Probably a posher way than that, but that's what it feels like, you sort of like, you sort of like, it feels like you sort of, your part of your brain gets a grip of the rest of it and goes, no, that's it. This isn't appropriate. And it's interesting. Yeah. Okay. So you did the flight, and how was the flight?
Really great. Yeah. There was, I don't even think there was mild turbulence. They put the seatbelt thing on a couple of times, but I mean, I did stay in my seat, with the seatbelt on. I did knit the loo, but I'd booked a seat that was only three seats from the toilet, because then I don't need to stand up for too long, and that was all part of what can I control,
Part of your plan, right? Okay.
Yeah. So and I was in the aisle, which I was happier about, in case part of the wall fell out, because
Cool. Yeah.
So yeah, so that was great. And then had an internal flight within the States, which was not quite as great. So that was really challenging. And by that time, well, I can't remember, but when we landed, it was 3 a.m. UK time. So I was like absolutely exhausted. But it was really, it was delayed by like 2 hours or something.
So let me get it straight. So you've done a 10-hour flight.
Yeah.
So Atlanta's, is that 5 hours behind the UK time? 5?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're all over the place at this point.
Yeah.
You've had a really carefully crafted plan, which you've stuck to the most part. Which is you're exerting a little bit of control. And then you've got to do a connecting flight, and you've got a delay. So you must have been exhausted by then. And then the flight, you didn't feel that was a great experience for you.
No, even things, just everything about it didn't go right. The lady next to me was just quite irritating and playing this game and kept putting it in my face. Just everything about it was just like, and it was dark, and the blinds were down, and it was incredibly bumpy. The first bit was fine. I can't remember now how long it was supposed to be. I think it was supposed to be an hour and a half. And we basically were up for an extra hour than we should have been, because we were sort of in this storm, and I didn't know at the time. Well, the pilot said to us, we're having to go round again to try and land. But actually, just before I carry on with that, the flight checklist thing was so helpful, particularly on that flight, which was very traumatic. Because even I didn't have it out, but I'd read it quite a few times.
Yes.
And so when I heard noises and felt it accelerating, all those kind of things, actually I thought, oh, that's okay. That's like part of the plan. That's so that really, really helped. In that, I think a lot of that kicked in in that kind of tricky turn. But so we went round again, but it actually, when I looked at the flight plan afterwards, we'd actually been around twice more. It was really tricky. So anyway,
you were holding. So just to clarify, you didn't do a go around. You were in a holding circle. Is that what you're saying?
He said it was a go around. I don't know. So
go around is where you come into land and then you shoot up.
Yeah, he was trying to land and couldn't because the weather was so bad. Yeah, so we're just going round and round, and it was, oh my days, up and down. And
you probably just there. So what a great experience for you is that, I'm going to say that you've had this, this sort of massive flight, and for the most part it's been smooth, and then you've had a little test flight.
Yeah. And it was, and so I was just up there and I had my music on, because that really helps me. And I've said to a lot of people, it was very intense prayer time. I am a prayer, and honestly, it was just like I just have to like get through this. But yeah. And so it was really, really traumatic, to be honest. And I got off and I felt jelly legs, and even my suitcase, the wheel had fallen off. There was a massive dent. But I sort of had a bit of a brain dump the next day into the Lovefly Facebook group, like, this has happened to me. And then I thought, right, I have to very, very consciously draw a line under this. I can't let this affect me. And even though it was traumatic, I didn't feel unsafe. I knew all of these things that I thought, actually, I do know I'm safe. It's a horrible experience, but I do know that, we are safe and that kind of thing. So, so I thought I have to draw a line that I can't carry this
Well,
with me.
do you see that goes again? You see the two brain thing going on. That's really interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think anybody, if you're really tired, you go on a flight, you've got the window blinds down, you do a couple of go around, you just, I can imagine anybody would feel, oh, gosh, just let me get off this damn thing, So I think you're very welcome to feel like, that was unpleasant. I didn't like it, and I don't want to go through that again.
Yeah.
That's completely normal.
Yeah.
But you did. So obviously you went there, and then what about coming back? How was that?
Well, there's even a story there because the Air India crash happened while I was away. So I saw people saying things online, and I saw headlines about things, and I thought, I'm not going to click on them. I can't click, and so I was, and I'd heard a couple of people talking at the conference a little tiny bit, and I thought, I'm just not gonna, I don't want to know what's. So I knew there'd been some kind of flight incident, but I didn't know what. I just thought, I can't now. When I get home, I'll have a look, but I can't look now. But it was still on my mind. And then, so the morning of my flight home, I went for a jog because that's part of my thing. Just get me in the zone. And I fell over quite badly, broke my teeth, damaged my elbow, broke fingers, but I didn't realize that till I got home. Cut my knee, bruised everywhere. It was awful.
If you proper went for it, crikey.
So that made the flight home quite traumatic because I was in a lot of pain. But despite that, it was okay. And again, it was that, when I fell, I was literally lying on the pavement, and I thought, can't fly home now. I won't be able to fly. It's like this thing in my brain constantly just saying that, like, and I thought, no, I just have to. How else am I gonna get home? And I thought, you know what? I've flown here, and that was okay. Got through that traumatic second flight, and that was okay. I've got all these things. I know it's the safest flight, safest mode of transport, all these kind of things. So, I just have to do it.
But you give yourself a good talking to, don't you? That's all.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. That's what you do. If something happens, then you kind of rationalize it. I think that's really helpful to sort of hear that sort of separation despite what's happened. I mean, gosh, you must have been in such pain if you weren't even aware that you'd done all those things as well.
Yeah, I had a very bad gash, so I had that all bandaged up.
Yeah.
So so it was tricky, and I think, again, because of the Lovefly and this, people talk at different times about asking for help, and so I think I was more inclined to. So I just said to them, I can't. I just need some help, like transferring. I didn't mind on the way there. I was happy doing the transfer, finding my way around. That I quite enjoy that. But I couldn't even carry my backpack because I'd like jarred my shoulders. So so they helped me with the transfer, and I felt a bit stupid, but it really helped asking for help, and the people on the plane were helpful, because they saw it fall. They said, "What have you done?" So so I think asking for help. I know it seems obvious, but it really helps to do that. Yeah.
Yes. So you've been back. So that was June time. What are we in now? So we're in August at the time of recording. So I'm assuming you haven't flown since.
No, but I even went away to America, I got asked to go on a work trip to Northern Ireland, not quite as far. And again, automatically, I would normally either think, I'm not going to go, or I'll get the ferry. But I thought, oh, this is a free way to keep up my flight exposure.
Yeah.
So I booked that quite even before. Oh, no, I think I booked it when I came back, maybe. But either way, it's booked for October. So I did feel anxious about it, but and I'm sure leading up to it, I'll start getting all these, things, and maybe I don't know how I'll be, but I just feel that I've got a lot of these tools now to sort of deal with that a bit better.
Yeah, I mean, I love the way you sort of like calm yourself by talking about what's happened and sort of rationalize it, putting it in its place. I like that. That's really nice. And you've done that quite a few times throughout this podcast. So you've got this flight coming up in October, which is good. It's another chance because you need to get back on the horse again, don't you? As they say. Try not to throw yourself over or become ill before it, if you don't mind, Sarah,
Yeah. But even if I do get ill or fall over, I still know I can do it. It's
exactly.
yeah.
Crazy. So what would you say is your sort of big advice to people, like, if people listen to your story going, oh, okay. So what I like about yours is that you're not the finished article yet in terms of your fear of flying. You've still got work to do. You're still very much managing the flight, which is great. You're being proactive rather than reactive. You're doing it, but you are following you're planning it so it sort of falls in with what you want it to be like. And I think that's absolutely brilliant, and that in time, hopefully you'll be able to let go of some of those things if they're not as helpful, but it might be that you're just a planner and that's the way you do stuff, I know many people like that. So when you think about it now, from at this point right now, and people kind of might not be even where you are, what would you say to them in terms of they should do or they could think about that would help them?
I think what I find most helpful is to try and rationalize things, really, to put things into their rightful place, put our thoughts into the rightful place. So that sense of actually putting things in perspective. So yes, there are risks to flying like anything else, but do I want to take that risk and enjoy the thing? Well, yes. So I'm going to therefore, go for it, and try and put the steps in that I can. And so I think this thing of just, what is my sort of mind telling me, and right, okay, now how can I, what tools do I have, what knowledge do I have that I can speak to those sort of thoughts? I think that's really, really helpful. And that knowledge and those tools pretty much is from Lovefly, and so I'm so thankful, because literally I really don't know how I would have got on the flight without those tools, but then dealt with the various traumatic things that have happened, so very thankful. Yeah.
Oh, you're very welcome. I mean, it's nice to hear as well, because we didn't get to meet you at Manchester, and and yet in 2 months you've managed to sort of help yourself to get to the point where you can fly, and it's not all been sort of smooth sailing, as the cliche goes. And so I think that's remarkable. And here you are considering another flight after such a big absence and a few not very good experiences. I think that's really, really, really good. It's super inspiring. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's exciting. And we're planning a family holiday abroad next year with a flight.
Nice.
One of my daughters is quite frightened, and I think I've probably passed that on, and so I'm trying to share, these insights and things with her to show, that the good things. So yeah, no, it's
well, a lot of parents beat themselves up over this, so just give yourself permission not to. I know you know that, but the best thing you're doing is working on yourself. And as cliche as that sounds, it is the best thing you can do. And then they get certainty from, mum's all right, so I'll be all right.
Maybe I'll be able to talk to her during this flight.
Yeah, that'll be nice.
Novel. Yeah.
I'm not managing the flight right now. I can't actually talk to you, you know. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, and actually, that's funny. We're talking about this. Talking about it and thinking about taking my family abroad. I feel okay about that now. You know, I feel that could be quite an enjoyable thing. Whereas when we previously in Spain, I just thought this is horrendous. Why we're doing this? Yeah. So it is that, you know, this journey has been quite a mindset shift.
Yeah, that's awesome. Sarah Holmes, thank you very much. Very good, very helpful. Yeah. And keep us up to date in the Facebook group as you make improvements. And obviously, if you have a wobble, we'll look out for those as well. But I think it's great. I mean, it just goes to show what's possible with some determination and a bit of thought challenging in literally 2 months. It's remarkable.
Yeah. Well, thank you to Lovefly and you.
You're welcome. Very welcome. Thank you on behalf of the Lovefly team for being a big part of it. And, you know, and as you learn stuff, if you get a chance to keep contributing like you are in the Facebook group, keep doing that. That's really helpful. So, and we want to hear how it goes in October. So,
super. Great. Thank you.
I'll press the stop button now, shall I?
Right. Yeah. Super.